Ophthalmology always looks at structure. So basically we learn that if the eyeball is too long, the picture will fall ahead of the retina and you will not be able to see the picture well, just like if a picture falls ahead of a screen, you can't see it well. If the eyeball is too short or the lens is too stiff, the picture will fall behind the retina, just like light that concentrate behind the screen. And I don't disagree with them, except for one thing. You can change the structure of the eye. You can see better. I've proven it beyond any reasonable doubt to myself. Most of my students think exactly the same in terms of their own eyes. And I agree that to some extent we have a situation of a long eye. And some of it is because the sclera starts to change its shape. Most of it is because the vitreous, which is so large in the eye, which is mainly fluid gel. Interesting. Only 1% of hyaluronic acid and 99% water, and still it's a gel. And that gel, according to the medical profession, doesn't change much. It just changes, just slow. And slowly, more gel is dripping in as we look at smartphone and at computers, and the eyeball becomes long. Can we change it? Absolutely. Look at the fact that there are so many nationalities, the Bedouins in the desert, the Maoris, the Tibetans in rural Tibet, that actually have great vision. The Amazon natives have great vision. Why? Because they use it differently. Who doesn't understand that using the eyes can get the eyes better? Who doesn't understand that your mind affects the structure of your eyes, that your function affects your structure, and your thought affects your function? Ophthalmologists and neurologists, they don't get it. And yet, we all know, those of you in this conference, and more people in the world, that the brain, to a great extent, can expand and shrink, can become more flexible and more rigid, can degenerate and regenerate. I'm here to show you how you can affect your mind, how you can affect your eyes in such a way that they will change completely, how you can affect your mind so you can get out of paralysis, and mainly get out of the paralyzing thought that vision cannot improve. Because indeed it can and it does. It all depends on your openness to that probability. In the past, my vision was so poor that I wasn't able to read anything without 2 magnifying lenses. There was a 38 diopters, when a normal diopters is 2 or 2.25, with which I would put it on my nose to read. And then I improved. Somehow I improved anyway, growing. And then I did eye exercises. And my improvement was that I was able to wear these glasses, which were considered to be reduced glasses. And to give you a sense, when I started to work, if I would look at this chart, without glasses, I would see it from this distance. And I'm talking about the big E. And with glasses, I could see it from that distance. And so you understand why basically I was considered to be legally blind with 1% vision or acuity of vision. And then, we had another pair of glasses, a bit reduction of these ones. And I remember the big joy I had that when from this distance I was able to see those two letters. And I felt such a big improvement. It took me 2.5 months to get just there. Now that I'm about 50 years, a little bit less than 50 years older than the time that I started to work on my eyes, my vision is considered by some to be around 50% of normal vision, and by others 60% of normal vision. And that basically means that I can read this line from 20 feet or 6 meters and not from this distance we're standing. And there are those moments. They happen when I can even see this one. Now, of course, all of you can see this with your glasses on, and I want to help you to see even this with your glasses off, this much. But just know where I started. Just think about somebody who sits in the wheelchair and can't even mobilize his arm. And now he's walking just with a cane. Can you imagine that change? I, comparing to that person, just walk with a slight limp. And my eyes are better and better. I just celebrated my 66th birthday. And the biggest gift I got was the renewal of my driver's license. My friends, I'm already driving for 38 years. And my license is with no restrictions. Why? Because I worked on my eyes. Because I worked on the function of my eyes that my brain did not know. My eye is so damaged that 99% of my lens is scar tissue. I was reading Braille. I was the quickest Braille reader in the state of Israel already at my 6th grade. I competed with a university student. I read a book after book after book. Oh, they were heavy to carry. And I was a small and weak kid, and I used to carry them. And I was reading them. And by the way, I was a son of deaf parents. Just think about the combination. The blind kid of Ida and Abraham in Tel Aviv. All the deaf community knew who I was. Some of them still remember that. And yet, where I got to is not complete vision. It's not perfect. I only normally see this line, and then with difficulty this line from normal distance, and sometimes this line, and all of you can see this line from that distance, and then this line. And I want you all to see this line without glasses, because you can. Because what it takes is commitment and understanding. With bits and pieces of my lenses, I was able to see more and more details with this practice that we're having. With bits and pieces of my lenses, I was able to move. Do you understand why then I was drawn to help not only vision problems, but I helped many vision problems? I remember the person who had 5% vision. He could see this from 20 feet. This from 20 feet. I got him to be able to see this from 20 feet. How? With eye exercises. After a failed surgery on his eyes, I was able to do it. I thought he was an old man then. I don't think that way, not this time, because I was 28 and he was 73. But he was able to improve. And what did I tell him? What did you do most of your adult life? And he was a pharmacist. He said, I read the prescriptions the doctors gave me, and I read medicine, the labels on medicine bottles. Prescriptions and labels on medicine bottles. Said that all your life you looked from near. And one of his exercises was to look at a distance for 2 hours a day. And do the rest of the exercises, which I will explain. That includes relaxation. That includes adaptation to the sunlight. That include balancing the use of his eyes. And we'll talk about them again. But the main thing is learning to look at details. So what did I do in my world? I remember that when I wanted to look at the braille that I was reading, my teacher told me, don't look. You don't see anything anyway. Think what an order that gave to my brain. One thing that I've learned was to look at windows. Look. It's beautiful to look at those trees. Look at the separation of branches in those trees. Well, I invented years later the shifter, where we look up and down, 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 up and down. My son, who also was born with cataracts, my two kids were born with cataracts, my son and my daughter. And my son, who was born with cataracts, looked at checkered square at the age of 8 weeks. I got it. That's what the brain does. It looks up, it looks down. That's why we have the shifter. That's why those pinholes are so great. You look through a hole and you look at different areas and you look with a certain focus. So you focus, if you don't see well, at big objects. I used to see, okay, there's a head, then there's shoulders, then there's a chest, then there's a stomach, and slowly, slowly, there's a hand. There's a space between the fingers. And there are bells in the class, and I look from bell to bell. Guess how many times I had to stand in the principal's office with teachers complaining that I keep moving my eyes when I have to listen to them. I actually humiliated those teachers. I remember going to my geography teacher in a break with kids around, and I said to her, why do you think that if I look from bell to bell, I'm not listening to your lecture? She had no good answer, and she was embarrassed. But I must tell you, friends didn't understand me, teachers didn't understand me, parents and relatives were laughing at me because all the doctors said, I'll be blind forever. I had a blind certificate, and that was for good. Now I'm driving. What's the difference? Starting to function differently, looking at details. One of the most important exercises I've done was first of all looking at my fingers, finger space, finger space, finger space, before I look at the bell from area to area. Then I would look at the fact that there's a tree here, a tree there, a tree here, a tree there, and there's space between the trees. And then it escalated to seeing that there are space between leaves on the bushes. And then I could see spaces between stones, and I would look from stones to stone. And that created the sense of vision for me, looking from detail to detail. Just think what would have been if I would listen to my teacher would say, you don't see anything anyway, just feel. Until these days, I sometimes dial the phone, not the smartphone, but the landline, touching the different keys. But it is so much better to start and make a person who is tactile also visual and look at different areas. It builds new areas in the brain. The brain is flexible. The brain can change. It changed when I was almost 17, and it still is changing when I'm over 66. It is so nice to look at the waves, to look at the sun. It's an eye-opener. I'll never forget the wonderful woman from Portugal that came all the way to San Francisco, who was almost completely blind. But when she saw the sea, she wanted to look so much that she ended up then seeing it, seeing even some rocks, never seeing boats or ship or the Golden Gate Bridge that you can see from this area. But at least looking And then she could see big signs. And then she could cross the street. Something her children told me about. And the motivation to see is a part of seeing. If you take your glasses off and you look at beauty, slowly, you'll see that beauty better. Now, I am now looking at the sea. And I'm looking at the Golden Gate Bridge. And I'm looking at the mountains of marine headlands. And I'm looking at the rocks and the boats and the waves from Land's End. And for me, that's like a shifter. You look from detail to detail. When you look at every wave, you look at the waves as they move to shore, and they're exactly like a shifter. It's just so wonderful to look at them. And the motivation to see more is opening me up. And I will never forget how time and again I asked from a Good Samaritan, what am I looking at? And as they describe what I'm looking at, I would follow it. And that woke up my macula, the central and the most important part of the visual system. And that helped me see. Can you imagine? From reading Braille to reading. From not seeing what's in front of me to driving. That's what it takes. Looking, observing, and observing details one by one. Often I need to work on my weaker eye. And I do it by covering my stronger eye. I need a ball. And I often look with my weaker eye at the distance. I look, somebody threw me a ball. So I often throw and catch, and then I look at the distance, look from area to area. And I'm getting my brain to use an area it normally doesn't use, my weaker eye. When I take the glasses off, the two eyes are looking together at the distance, and not only my weaker eye. And I visualize that I'm throwing the ball to different ridges, different mountains, different trees. It's so wonderful to stand here in this great spot in Land's End and look. And it's so wonderful to walk in Land's End. Many times I get clients to watch the beach. It makes such a big difference when they look at the beach, at the waves, at boats, ships, and as they are seeing the waves and looking at the beauty of nature, the eyes open in real way. And even if they suffer from a major eye problem, one of them, for example, had only 5% vision. Looking at the beach helped her use them so well that she improved it to 15% vision. She got to a place where light stopped bothering her, which she did in the past, where she couldn't live independently, and now she could. And then some people have okay vision, but they need to sharpen their vision a bit. And looking at the ocean makes a huge difference. And what is true for one is true for the other. What is really true for all of us is that there are 9 principles that basically come to feel what's missing for us. In the modern world, people tend to fatigue with their eyes a lot. You probably are right now watching this video and will watch my program while after watching others. And the eyes could easily fatigue. So the number one thing which is important for the eyes is deep relaxation. without which we can never improve our vision permanently, and without which the eyes can become sick. And that's why we teach the deep relaxation. I teach people to palm their eyes, to move, to put their palms around the eye orbits. But palming is not the only way to relax, and sometimes it doesn't work if we're overly stressed. We have to learn how to palm. We need to then also learn to relax at the strong sunlight. We're being discouraged for being outdoors. I don't think there's anything more healing than light itself. Light is so powerful, as important as breath, and yet we're being told to stay away from it because of many different reasons, like UV lights that can be damaging and other reasons. But truth of the matter is, we need some of the UV lights and we need the infrared lights. We need to be outdoors at the light. And learning to adapt to the light is very important. We will show you an exercise that can help you do that. Then learning to look at details, it's so important. The most important part of the retina is called macula. It has a small region within the retina, and with that you look from detail to detail. Like myself, my two children were born with cataracts, and their lenses were removed. And I got my daughter to look at details with her eye that has no lens crystalline within it. And she looked at details, and she learned to look at petals with a weaker eye, and she could count, amazingly enough, 200 petals in 56 seconds. It was fantastic to watch. So she learned to connect between her brain and her macula. This is one of the most important things that I'm saying. Flexibility of the brain often bypasses unfriendly structure or compromised structure. She had no lens, and yet she was looking at details. So she woke up the most important part of the retina, which is called the macula, and now her vision without glasses is 75% of normal vision, and with thick glasses, because she still doesn't have a lens, is 100% vision. Unheard of with infants who were born with cataracts. She and my son see better than anyone who was ever born with cataract. And so looking at details is so important, and losing curiosity of details is deadly for our vision. And that's what happens to people in the modern world. And so we teach people to start and observe details, which helps them regain the work of the macula and can prevent macular degeneration, one of the greatest blinding conditions on earth these days. And the next principle is looking at a distance. We just don't do enough of it. And when you finish my program, I want you to look out of your window at a distance and rest your eyes, because we just don't look enough at a distance. And you've seen in the pictures of the ocean how wonderful the distance could be, how all-encompassing it could be. And it's also the best way to prevent cataracts, because the lens is convex when we look from near and flat when we look from far. And when it's flat, the muscles relax, the suspensory ligament stretches the lens, and the ligament of the neck, the nuchal ligament, is completely relaxed. You cannot relax the lens without relaxing the neck, and you cannot relax the neck without relaxing the lens. And yet we all slouch and tense our eyes. And all of you can look right at your hand near your nose and then look far at a distance. Again at your hand and again the distance. And you can see how the distance is more relaxing. Important. So to relax the lens and the neck, we owe it to ourselves to look 20 minutes a day at a distance. We can do it in intervals of 4 and 6 minutes. And 4 minutes is a long time for a modern person, especially if you are busy with a document that you have to work with. But it is worth it. And the next principle is peripheral vision. While we focus on looking, as I was talking about the macula, we also have to have a sense of all that is in the side, the periphery. And as we activate our peripheral vision, we see better and better and better, because we don't strain the eye. It's just like you don't step on part of your foot, but on your whole foot. The next principle is balanced use of the two eyes. As too many people overwork one eye at the expense of the other, and it creates a real strain on the whole visual system, including the brain. The next principle is balance use within each eye. As often we use some parts of the eyes with great strain, and we don't use other parts of the eye. And the next principle is body and eye coordination, where we coordinate between the body and the eyes. We do it as we evolve and as we develop, but we can do it much better as we become adults and regain our vision, and we have to absorb it in our body as well. And the next principle is more blood flow to the visual system. I couldn't emphasize enough how important it is. And I can tell you that 85% of all blindness in the world is a result of poor blood flow to the visual system.